Hi guys, welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be doing my June wrap-up. This one is also a little bit behind because I apparently can't do things on time to save my fucking life, but better late than never, right? I read 12 books in the month of June, and I am just going to jump right in talking about them with you guys, so get ready for that. The first book I read in the month of June was The Summer of Jordi Perez and the Best Burger in Los Angeles by Amy Spalding, which I gave 3.5 stars. I actually talked about this book a little in my Pride Flag book tag, where I talked about how it was something very near and dear to my heart to have a plus-size main character that was also LGBT and queer, as well as being interested in the same things that I'm interested in, as I would like to become a social media manager for a company. That is what I'm going to school for. But this was just a really fun queer romance over the summer. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it if that's something that you're looking for. What it's about is this girl, I can't really remember her name, which I feel bad about, but the main character gets an internship at her favorite clothing shop, and she has to share the internship with this girl, Jordi Perez, and they kind of slowly start to form a romance and are fighting for the fall job, and there's some shenanigans that go on. And also the Best Burger in Los Angeles part is that the main character's best friend's boyfriend's friend asked her to help out with an app that his dad is creating to find the best places to do everything in the area, so they have to try and find the best burger in Los Angeles for the app. Like I said, I did really enjoy this book, and I do highly recommend it if that sounds like something that you might be interested in. So, slight interruption to your regularly scheduled programming. I forgot to mention this, but also in June I read Red, White, and Royal Blue again by Casey McQuiston. I reread this. I gave it 5 stars this time. I bumped it up a star. I just loved it so much. It is so amazing, and I don't know. There's nothing else to say that I didn't say in my May wrap-up, which I will link down below, but yeah, I really loved it, and I loved reading it a second time. The next book I read this month was Her Royal Highness by Rachel Hawkins, which I gave 4 stars. This is the second book in the Royal series by Rachel Hawkins. However, I didn't read Prince Charming until after book 1, until after I read this one, which I don't think I really lost out on a whole lot by reading this one first. Basically, it is about this girl who goes to a boarding school in Scotland after her girlfriend breaks up with her, and her roommate ends up being the Princess of Wales, I believe. Maybe it's Scotland. The princess, and she's like super spoiled, doesn't seem to like the main character Millie, and after a while they kind of start to grow together. They get stuck in the wilderness together as part of a tradition at the school, and it's just like a super cute love story between the two of them, and it's just, it's super cute. The one issue that I did have with this book is the reason that she ends up like choosing to finally go to the school. She was going to give it all up for her girlfriend, who was her best friend that she had a crush on, and then her best friend like broke up with her boyfriend, wanted attention, and went to her, and she was about to throw everything away for that. I don't agree with that. I don't think that was a good choice, but she did end up where she needed to be, which I did like that. The other thing I really liked about this book was when Millie was talking about her sexuality, she said that she was just going to be open and honest when she went to Scotland, which was a great thing. And instead of like blatantly saying like, oh, I'm bisexual, or like coming out at any point, when she said she had had an ex-girlfriend, her best friend said, oh, so or like her friend at Scotland, at the Scotland boarding school, said, oh, so we need to find you lasses instead of lads. And she was like, oh, lads are fine as well. I'm fine with both. And I was like, that's great. So it was just a really cute, cutesy little story. The third book I read was I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver, which I gave 4.5 stars. This book follows a non-binary character, Ben, as they are kicked out of their house and have to find their sister to live with and move to a new school and deal with all of these things on top of not being out and dealing with all the repercussions of wanting to be out but not being able to be, and just new love and a bunch of stuff, and it was just super cute. It was a little depressing, as can be expected, but I did honestly really enjoy it. It reminded me a lot of a Troye Sivan song, which I know Troye Sivan was mentioned in the book as Ben's love interest, had them listen to Troye Sivan, but it did have that like vibe to it, that kind of slightly depressing but ultimately cute vibe. I really liked Ben's love interest, Nathan. I thought Nathan was super cute and super amazing, and I fangirl over Nathan. It was such a good book, and I really, really enjoyed it. Non-binary was an identity that I knew existed and kind of knew the basics of what it was, but I didn't really get into like knowing what it is from the perspective of someone who was non-binary or who is non-binary. So it was super interesting to be able to read this book by a non-binary author explaining the experience of someone who is non-binary in the adolescent stage. It would be interesting to see about read a book about a non-binary character in more of an adult setting. I think would be interesting as well, but I did really enjoy this and I really loved it, and I now have a strong emotional connection to it just because of the time in my life that I was reading it. I really enjoyed it and I highly, highly recommend it. The next book I read in June was Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn, which I ended up giving 2 stars. Just as a preface, there is nothing like inherently wrong about this book or this story. It was just something that I didn't particularly like. I didn't really like. It had some things obviously that I didn't like. I didn't like how the main characters like went to college together. I don't ever think that that's really a good idea, and I don't think that the portrayal that was put in this book is a good portrayal of what usually happens when you room with people that you know from high school in college. It's a bad idea, don't do it. But other than that, if you did not know what it's about, it is about a girl who is biromantic and asexual, trying to navigate a new relationship as either a freshman or sophomore in high school. She starts a new job at the library or a library and meets this guy that she likes, but she doesn't know how to kind of go about it being asexual, and it was a little lackluster in my opinion. I didn't really care for the romance that much. I didn't really get them being together. It seemed like more of a platonic thing as opposed to having any actual even romance chemistry. I also didn't like how the main character started treating her friends after she started to kind of develop this relationship with him, because that's a no-no. You don't treat people like that once you're in a relationship. The 5th book I read in June was Prince Charming by Rachel Hawkins, which I also gave 4 stars. So like I mentioned previously, I read Her Royal Highness before I read Prince Charming, and while I don't feel like I really lost any significance in the story or anything in the story, I did really, really enjoy it just as much, if not maybe a little bit more than Her Royal Highness. But all of that aside, like, if you don't know what this one is about, what's her name? Daisy is the main character, and her sister is marrying the Prince of Wales or Scotland, I can't remember. And she is taken there over the summer after like this big drama happens in Florida where she lives, and she ends up falling in love with one of the best friends of the younger prince. I really liked the tension between the main character and her love interest in this book. I thought it was done really well, and like just it was such good tension that it was like a when will they? That's not the saying. It's a will they or won't they? Will they? When will they? I don't know. It was so good. It was a good tension. It was just like very reminiscent of an early 2000s novel with like tension and some cutesy stuff in it, and I just really, really enjoyed it. It made me happy, and I highly recommend this series to anyone who wants something in that realm. Now it's time for an unpopular opinion. The next book I read in the month of June was Autobiography by Christina Lauren, which I gave 3 stars. I really, really wanted to like this book. I really did. I had had it for years and I just finally got around to reading it but inevitably it kind of just disappointed me. Obviously, if you don't know what this is about a bisexual boy in Provo, Utah, who, when he moved to Provo, Utah, he went back in the closet even though he had been out previously, just because, if you don't know, Provo, Utah is a very Mormon city, and he didn't want to get ridiculed for it or kind of like shunned for it, so he is back in the closet for a few years until he takes this class where they have to write a book in a semester, and he meets this boy Sebastian who he starts to develop a crush on, and they kind of have a thing together. And the premise sounds really cool. The premise sounds awesome. However, I did have a few issues with it. Number one is the way that Sebastian handles his own sexuality. I know to each their own and all of that, and like how hard it must be when you are a Mormon to come out as gay. You really can't do that, but he denies it even after he has been in nearly sexual relations with Tanner, which just kind of seems absurd to try and deny it at that point, but okay.
I didn't explain this as well as I meant to. What really got on my nerves was that it didn't seem fair to Tanner that he would continue to use Tanner in all the physical aspects, but not in any emotional aspects. He would even accept that he had a romantic relationship with Tanner, if that makes sense. And I think that was what really got me.
I also didn't like how Tanner treated his best friend, Autumn. I think it was kind of a, when I want attention, you're there, but otherwise I don't need you kind of thing. And he did really take advantage of her ultimately, and it rubbed me the wrong way. And the third issue that I mainly had with this is that for a huge chunk of the book, it is told in first person in Tanner's point of view, and that is how it is set up, that is how it is brought about, it's how it's narrated, whatever you want to say. But then all of a sudden towards the end, we switch to third person alternating Sebastian and Tanner, and it just pisses me off. Because you could at least stay in first person to do that, to alternate, but no, you go to third person, like a completely new realm of shittery, and narrate that way, and it frustrated me to no end. I didn't like listening to it when it like immediately switched to third person. It wasn't fun for me. I didn't care about Sebastian's point of view like at all at that point. It wasn't for me. I wish I had really liked this book, but it wasn't a favorite. And keeping with the queer people in small religious towns theme, the next book I read in June was Georgia Peaches and Other Forbidden Fruits by J. Robin Brown, which I gave 3.5 stars. This is also about a girl that is a lesbian that moves to a more religious town after her father is going to be a radio evangelicist there, and he wants her to go back in the closet to kind of protect his reputation almost, and so she doesn't get ridiculed, and she goes along with it. And as she gets there, she gets this new group of people, and she finds her dream girl, and it ends up that her dream girl likes her back, and they just have a cute little romance. And there's the whole, she wants to keep her promise to her father and not come out, and her love interest really wants to come out and be a public couple. I really liked the way that sexuality and religion were handled in this book, especially the religion aspect, because I loved the way the main character dealt with religion and had a relationship with religion despite being LGBT, despite being a lesbian. I also really, really loved the family and friend aspects that the main character dealt with in this book, as her father has just remarried and as she had to move to this town and her best friend is left in the town that she moved out of that is just about an hour or so away, and having to deal with that friendship kind of being broken up, and a new stepmother is just, it all is dealt with so well, and I enjoyed it just so much. And the next book I read in June was perhaps my favorite of the year so far, and that is Onyx and Ivory by Mindy Arnett, which I gave 5 stars. I really, really, really enjoyed this book, and if it's up, I'll link it down below, but I did mention it in my mid-year book freakout tag, where I go more into depth about the, like, summary of it, because it's kind of a complex summary, so I'm gonna try and go into it. The main character, Kate, is known as Traitor Kate because her father tried to assassinate the king like 2 years ago, and she has been living on her own, working for the Relay Riders, which is the courier service of this world, taking letters between the cities. She is doing just fine doing this, and then one day the prince comes to town after being the errant prince after running away for a few years, and they meet at chance after they had some flames, as her father was also the master of horses when his father was king, and his father's still king. That's weird. And they kind of try to ignore each other, but when he is attacked by these daydrakes, which are explained as dragons without wings, then she saves him, and they kind of have to go to the palace together and deal with their old flames, deal with the fact that she has illegal magic. Oh, that's a whole nother aspect of it that I didn't mention. There's just a lot to it, and it's very, very good. It is told in alternating perspectives of Kate and Quarren's point of views, and it is so good. My absolute favorite part of this book, like, I loved the characters, I loved the plot, like, I loved the use of horses in it, but my absolute favorite thing about this book has to be the world. The world is an almost westward expansion inspired, like, world where they have a courier service that is very similar to the Pony Express. They have steam engines. They're just starting to get steam engines in some parts of the world, and the revolver is started to be made after they have already had like single shot guns. They're starting to make revolvers, and it is just so good, and I really hope that we expand more on those aspects of the world in book 2, but I really enjoyed them in book 1, and it was just so good, and it makes me smile thinking about it. And then I read Did I Mention I Love You by Estelle Mascom, which I gave 2 stars. So I actually just posted a video on this where I read 2 books, this one and the one I'm going to mention later in the video, that had the same concept. I will link it down below if you want to watch it. It was actually a pretty funny video. I do recommend watching it if you want to know more. But basically, Did I Mention I Love You by Estelle Mascom is about this girl who moves, who goes to live with her father for the summer after her father walked out on her years ago, and he has a new wife and a new family. Like, not his family technically, because all the sons are his wife's. But anyway, she moves there for the summer and ends up falling in love with her stepbrother. I'm not making this up. There were 2 books like this that I read this month, but as much as the romance was shit, there was actually good romance in it that we completely ignore. The main character and the character Dean had some great chemistry. They had this like back and forth with the $5 that they like went back and forth with. It was the same $5 and it was just so cute, and it just, why they wanted to take away from his character and that chemistry that they had to put her with her stepbrother is beyond me. I don't agree with it. I don't like that. It's just that Tyler isn't shit. He's dumb. He's a fucking idiot. And he just needs to go away. The other thing that I didn't really like about this book is there was so much unnecessary drama, and like, now I'm one for a good shitty read once in a while, like with some unnecessary drama, but this one is just a step below after. Like, it's that bad. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. I'm just gonna move on to the next book, which has a very similar concept, and that is A Midsummer's Night Bear by Cody Keplinger, which I gave 3 stars. This is a book about a girl named Whitley who every summer after her parents got a divorce, she goes to stay with her father. Well, this time he surprises her by having a new wife who has 2 kids. You seeing where it's going? And she falls in love with her stepbrother. The thing though is that they actually went to high school together, but didn't know each other. And so on the night of graduation, he threw a party and they slept together and then met the next day as step-siblings. Talk about awkward. I enjoyed this a lot more than I enjoyed Estelle Mascom's book, which was my only like gauge of how much I really liked it, just because it's such a weird concept. Like, I don't know, I don't know, okay? But if you did want to dabble into the YA step-sibling genre, I would recommend this one over Estelle Mascom's book. And that's not me trying to be mean, it's just that Cody Keplinger has such an easy writing style to read and to enjoy that if you want to get into anything that Cody Keplinger has written about, I recommend her books, just because, at least for me, they're so easy to get through and get into and all of that. So yeah. And now we're moving on to a book I really liked, and that is Fatal Throne by a gaggle of authors, which I gave 4.5 stars. So this is a book about Henry VIII's 6 wives, and each of their stories is told by a different author. And I gave each one a different star rating. And actually, when I do this, I don't want y'all to expose me, so I'm gonna expose myself. All of the star ratings added up and averaged is about 4. But I don't care. So I gave it 4.5 stars. But I have my handy dandy book here, and I'm just going to read them off to you. M.T. Anderson wrote Henry VIII's chapters, which I gave 3 stars. Candace Fleming wrote Catherine of Aragon's section, which I gave 3.5 stars. Stephanie Hemphill wrote Anne Boleyn's section, which I gave 4.5 stars. Lisa Ann Sandel wrote Jane Seymour's section, which I gave 3.5 stars. Jennifer Donnelly wrote Anna of Cleves section, which I gave 4.5 stars. Lisa Sue Park wrote Catherine Howard's section, which I gave 5 stars. And Deborah Hopkinson wrote Catherine Parr's section, which I gave 4.5 stars. So basically what happened, instead of me just saying that I read this book out of the blue because I felt like it, there's a little bit of a backstory. So my friend Alex, who you may have seen in a few of my videos, made me listen to Six the Musical, which if you haven't listened to it already, please, please, please do. It is so, so good. But she made me listen to Six the Musical and basically just got me obsessed with it. And I wanted to learn more, so I read this book, and I had so much fun learning more about Henry VIII and his 6 wives. If you have done any research on Henry VIII's 6 wives, let me know your favorite down in the comments below. I'm a Catherine Howard fan myself. She's a fave. Amy Atkinson is Catherine Howard. But yeah, let me know down in the comments below if you have a favorite of Henry VIII's 6 wives. Forget your astrological sign. Forget your... I don't even know. Just let me know. And the final and 12th book that I read this month was Arch Enemies by Marissa Meyer, which I gave 4 stars. I really enjoy this series, and I really enjoy most of what Marissa Meyer, or like at least what I've read of hers. But there is just something that keeps me from like truly loving and putting my heart into these characters in this story. Like I said, I really like them, but there's just something that keeps me from giving my whole heart to them. Obviously, this book was like a roller coaster of emotions. It was so good. It was so fresh. It was so fun. I don't know why I said that because I don't like James Charles. But if you don't know, the Renegade series by Marissa Meyer is about this girl named Nova who is part of the Anarchists, which are basically the supervillains of this world, Gatlin City, and what she does is she wants to take down the Renegades, which are the superheroes, from the inside out, so she basically joins the Renegades to bring them down from the inside out and ends up kind of like forming relationships with people actually in the Renegades, and there's just so much talk about like morality and what is good and what is bad and like all that stuff. It is so good. I think the talks of morality and what is good and is bad, and especially in this one way that we're talking about what was it, the neutralizing agent, I can't remember what it was called, whether that was a punishment or like who gets to decide who gets it and who doesn't, was such an amazing talk and so interesting. I really like those aspects of it the most. But I do highly recommend the series. If you have not read it, like, please do. It just is so good. I do have one other question though, and it's gonna come out of nowhere. But is Captain Chromium's dick chromium? And if it is, I feel bad for the Dread Warden. Anyway, so those are all the books that I read in June of 2019. Let me know down in the comments below what you read in June, if you read any of these books, what you thought of any of these books. Like, let me know all of your opinions down in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you sometime for a new one. Bye!